Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Spirituality with Ashley podcast. I am your host, Ashley. Super excited to be here with you guys. I feel like my energy levels are a little bit better this week. The last episode I was listening to it and I was just like, oh my God, I sound like I'm burnt out. So it was appropriate for me to do an episode about burnout. If you're feeling burnt out, check out that episode. It's episode 7. Spiritual burnout. This episode, however, we're bringing a little more energy to. How is everyone doing? I hope you're well. As always, you can reach out to me on social media. You can email me, send me your stories, your questions, all the things. I'm here for it. Love connecting with you guys. And just in case you're not already following me on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, you can find me on all the platforms at Spirituality with Ashley. All right, let's go ahead and get into this episode. I'm like going back and forth about whether or not to do an intro, and I just feel like it's a little bit forced, Like I have my little script and I don't want to do it. So I do want to add that on this podcast, I talk about everything from healing modalities and spiritual readings to personal growth and metaphysics and all of these things that I talk about, and sometimes with a guest we'll be talking about, are with the purpose of understanding ourselves on a deeper level and creating a deeper connection with our intuition and living in alignment, because I feel like it just feels better when you're living in alignment. At least it does for me. And so, what you can really expect from this podcast is practical tips for spiritual development, moments of inspiration and ahas, and insightful conversations with special guests eventually when we have guests on here. So, whether you're beginning out on your spiritual journey or you are a seasoned expert in all the spiritual things, this podcast is for you. All right, enough of the intro. Let's get into it. I have been having some experiences lately and I want to talk about them, obviously. So, God, my concept of time has just been insane. Like, I really like glitches in the matrix times 1,000 is what it feels like. And so I want to talk about that and some examples of like what's been happening, because what, just mind blown. I want to talk about some emotional stuff for a little bit, and then we're gonna get into a few things that I've been noticing in readings that I want to address, as far as like ethical considerations with getting into people's energy, because it's coming up so much. So I definitely feel like some stuff needs to be put out there about it. And also the importance of like raising your vibration and cultivating inner peace before diving down rabbit holes of duality, because you got to create a good foundation so you don't get sucked in. So those are some of the things I'm going to be talking about. Let's do this. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is, time. Time's been weird. It's been weird. It's been weird for a lot of people. Like, I know that it's not just me. I know some other people have been talking about it. And like the other day, I had a meeting. I was super excited about it. I've been looking forward to it all week. And man, on Thursday, so the meeting I had it on my calendar for Friday, and I thought that it was on Friday at 11:30. I was sure of it all week long. I was positive. And like Tuesday rolled by, Wednesday rolled by, and I was like, God, I wish the meeting was today. I have so much stuff to say. And then Thursday happened and I was just like, you know what? Maybe I can move the meeting up, because like I'm feeling this compulsion. And I was so just like looking forward to it and kind of sad that it wasn't on Thursday. Friday rolls around. I join the meeting. There's so much anticipation. And then as soon as I open the Zoom, it says that the meeting was for yesterday. And I thought I was going to lose my crap because the anticipation leading up to it, oh my God, I was just like, and then I had this emotional overreaction because I had built up, I was so excited about it. I'd been looking forward to it. And then I was so disappointed because I was like, "What did I miss my chance?" Like, so I could have done it yesterday when I really wanted to do it. It's so and I would have bet lots of money if I was a betting girl. If I was a betting woman. I would have bet lots of money on the fact that that meeting was on Friday. So I was so flabbergasted by the fact that it was not. And yeah, it ended up working out. I had the meeting. It was all good, but I was just like, holy crap, there like seriously, there was a glitch in the matrix because it was like my concept of time was just not on the same reality as I was living. It seemed like. And I know other people have been experiencing this where time is just freaking weird. Like, where did February go? I swear it was just February 1st and now it was just March 1st. Like, what? Where did what? I feel like there was 1 week in February. That's where I'm at with that energy. And I know that like as we age, time goes by faster. Honestly, time actually does move faster now because of the way the Earth's orbit is. I'm not even going to try to dive into that because I'm not an astronomer. Um, but Jesus, I wonder if astronomer is the right word. Whatever. I'm not even going to Google it in the middle of doing this podcast episode. Anyway, time has been weird. If you feel like time has been weird, please message me and share what you've been going through because I felt crazy. Like crazy. That's the word. That's where we're going to leave it. It was very uncomfortable. It was almost like I didn't even trust myself. Now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I need to freaking quadruple check everything I put on my calendar." It's like, oh, time is moving so fast and it's like it's just skipping around. And I understand, like, I love the way that somebody described this. I don't remember where it was, but I was like, oh, that resonates so much. Yes, we've all heard that time is not linear. It's not like from one point to another point. It's the way they described it was it's like a spiral. So imagine like a ribbon wrapped around a cone. That's what time actually looks like. That's how we experience it. That's how we can have parallel lives at the same time, experience different realities at the same time. That's how I was watching an anime with my boyfriend and it was so interesting. I was so confused because I'm not used to seeing this concept like displayed visually. It was so interesting. This anime character was in present day, like right now, modern stuff in Japan. And then he died. He got hit by a bus and he was reincarnated into the past, into what we would view as the past, into like a medieval life. And we were sitting there watching it and I was like, did I miss something? Like, why? My boyfriend's an avid anime watcher, so he gets it. He understands the way that it works. But I was just like, what? What did I, what? Did I miss something? Are we watching a flat? I assumed because I'm so used to living in this linear construct of time that my brain was like, oh, well, this has to be a flashback. And it wasn't. It wasn't. I'm still thinking about it like, what really happened there? So strange. So time is weird. And it's interesting because I feel like we're starting to experience that like on a real visceral living through it kind of a level instead of just talking about like time's not real, time's not linear. On our planet, time is linear. In our reality, it is linear. And I actually heard about another concept recently. um God, what's the guy's name? Dr. Kumar was on Gaia. Uh, Regina Meredith interviewed him. He's a doctor, and he's studies philosophy, and he was talking about how we resonate at a certain frequency, and my frequency is different from your frequency, but we can all resonate on a similar frequency that puts us into a reality. The reality on Earth is a specific frequency. That's why we all experience time in the way that we all experience time together. We all have a 365-day year, 24-hour days, but on other planets, time is different. Time moves way slower or way faster. Like, what is it? Saturn? Astrology people, please don't come for me. I say astrology people like I'm not into it too. I'm here for it. I just don't know all of the intricacies and details about it. But I know that Saturn is like a 30-year deal. Like it takes 30 years to orbit the sun or something like that. And so time moves differently on Saturn. We take a year to orbit the sun. Saturn takes 30. So time works differently. The vibration on Saturn is different. It's a different dimension on Saturn because time works differently. What? I may not have explained that well, but different dimensions have different ways of experiencing time. I'll put it like that. Kind of like when we're sleeping and our vibration changes when we're sleeping. And which is interesting that I just said that because I don't think I've ever actually thought about that before. Might be channeling a little bit right now. So when we sleep and we dream, time works differently in our dreams. Our vibration changes while we're sleeping and dreaming. And so we can experience all these different realities and have ET visits and abductions and all kinds of other experiences in dream time. I've had dreams where I go through a whole life cycle or where I've jumped between different timelines and dimensions and had experiences of my present life, but just different, like slightly different details. It's, oh my God, mind boggling. Anyway, that could be its own whole episode. So I just wanted to talk about some things that have kind of been on my mind lately that I've been experiencing. Time and different dimensions and dimension hopping and all the things. So interesting. Okay, so let's move on because I will just ramble about time and all the things. I'm sure we could probably come to some really cool, interesting conclusions and aha moments and epiphanies, but I'd rather have a little more organization if I'm going to talk about it on here. So, some things that have been coming up in readings. So, and I've got my notes here in front of me. So if you're watching this, you'll see me looking down. I have a paper in front of me. Okay. I'm having this experience where people are coming to readings, specifically psychic readings, which I think is interesting. Not so much in Akashic Records readings, which is interesting. Sometimes I feel like people get confused about the difference between a psychic reading and an Akashic Records reading. If you do want to know more about that, I have descriptions on my Instagram for kind of the differences between those types of readings. You can also read about the differences on my website. And as always, Google is there for you. And if you still have questions, feel free, message me, email me, reach out. I'm here for it. Let's talk. And so the thing that's been coming up is people will come to a reading and they will want to know information about someone else's life. And I'm getting pretty good about just straight up saying like, hey, the reading is for you, like you personally. It's your spiritual team that's going to be here. Spirit's going to be talking to you specifically. And I cannot ethically get into somebody else's energy and tell you what's going on with them in their lives in specific details. I can focus on a person and discern a broad overview of their energy. And if you're in a relationship with them, like if you're asking questions about your boyfriend or your fiance or a family member, and because you have that connection to them and you guys have like a soul agreement, you're in a relationship, like a active relationship, the dynamic of the energy is different. But when people come to readings and they're asking questions about people they haven't spoken to in years or somebody that they're interested in that they aren't actually physically, verbally connecting with, I'm not, it almost kind of feels like I'm a private investigator and they're asking me questions about the person and I have to give them like spy information about the person. And that's not, my guides aren't here for it. Your guides aren't here for it. And so I just want to lovingly, compassionately make an announcement about when you get readings, it's about you. And so if you are asking about somebody, let's say there's a guy that you used to be connected with years ago, and now you're just like, yeah, are we going to be together, or what's going on with him? I It's really, that's not why, that's not, It's not ethically okay for me to tap into his life and report back to you, because that's essentially what it is. But I can look into your energy and I can tell you what you learned from that person being in your life, why that person is on your mind, what it is you are getting out of that situation, what you're learning, the things, everything that has to do with you and that person or that situation. We can talk about that. We can talk about that all day. Um and so I wanted to mention that because I feel like it can be confusing. And I know it's funny because I was actually just watching a thing about tarot because I love tarot. I've been studying it for a while. There's so much. And I was watching somebody, they were talking about the major arcana cards, and they were saying that if if you're doing tarot because you want to predict the future, be careful with that because it is the present energy that you're reading. And the future, so I can look at your present current energy and tell you what future outcomes could potentially look like and future paths based on your energy right now in this moment. Your energy, your emotions, what you're thinking about, your interests, all of those things. And that can change. The future is not set in stone. So I just wanted to bring up that present moment energy, and ethically it's not okay to dive into somebody else's energy during a reading because they have to give their express permission. Just because you have psychic abilities and you can tap into somebody's energy does not mean that it's okay to just do it all willy-nilly. Like going to Walmart, walking around and then just tapping into random people's energy so you can see what their lives are like and what they're thinking and what they're up to. That's not okay. We have to maintain this level of respect for other beings, other living beings. So I think that's important to bring up because I think that a lot of people, I'm noticing that, and it seems to be very prevalent in like love readings or relationship readings, where I see it often on TikTok where like live tarot card readers will just be like, yeah, just be all up in the other person's energy. Like if a woman is asking a question about a guy, and then she'll tell you all this stuff about the guy, and if the guy is not there and they're not in a relationship and the guy did not give his permission, you have to be careful about skewed information. So when you do tap into somebody's energy and they have not given you permission, the information can be skewed, which means it's not reliable. It's not going to be very clear information. Can you tap in and kind of like get an idea? Yeah, but that idea isn't necessarily solid. It's going to be really shaky. And so when you're getting answers from readers about um other people's lives, basically, because I've had people come to me who told me like, well, and it's so weird because there's a trend right now where I do readings for people and they're like, well, all these other readers and people told me that this was going to happen, that this guy is going to do this and this. And I every time I have to explain that just because other readers have said the same thing, it does not necessarily mean that it's true. And it doesn't mean that it's true in this moment. And just because you resonate with it also doesn't make that information true. Everything is moment by moment because, like I said, the future is not set in stone. Things can change. And so maybe at some point the guy was going to reach out to you, or maybe at some point he was going to break up with his girlfriend for you, or whatever it is. But in the current reading right now, while I'm reading the energy, the answer is no, that's not what's going to happen. And what the situation is actually about is you doing some inner work on yourself. And it can be really hard to hear that. And it can also be really hard to deliver that information. I was just explaining to somebody that during a reading, I was like, I'm sorry, because I want to uplift people. I want to make people feel good. I want to give them the clarity that they want that's going to make them feel better so they can leave feeling relief, that they don't feel so burdened by whatever it is that they were worried about. However, it is my job to deliver the messages that I'm getting. And sometimes the messages that I'm getting are for your higher good, and they're not what you want to hear, they're what you need to hear. And sometimes when you hear what you want to hear, you can resonate deeply with that. Somebody telling you exactly what they're reading out of your energy based on what you want. So sometimes readers can tap into, well, often, I mean, if you're a professional reader, you're able to tap into that person that you're reading for. You can tap into their energy. And because tapping into somebody else's energy puts you on shaky ground, it's unethical, it can give you skewed answers. When you're tapping into that person's energy, it's easy to see what they want to hear and what they want. And so sometimes people will just do that, and I think it can also be confusing to differentiate between what that person wants to hear and what their energy is saying about the situation, and then the actual what's really happening in the situation based on the other person's energy too. Like, let's say there's a woman asking about a man, and the woman is there at the reading with me. I can tap into her energy, and I can see that she's like, oh, I'm really wanting him to reach out to me, and I'm really wanting us to be in a relationship, and I really feel like he's my person. And I can read that energy and get that information, and then I can just give that back to her and be like, yeah, he is your person. And if you are not honing your gift and being very honest and able to discern between different energies, I think that sometimes accidentally it can happen where a reader can tell you, like, hey, yeah, and tell you exactly what you want to hear because they're reading your energy and not necessarily reading the energy of the situation and the other person that's involved. Um, and so if you're telling the person what they want to hear, then that might not necessarily be what the person needs to hear. And so sometimes it can be difficult because it just doesn't feel great for me when I have to when I know what they want to hear and I have to tell somebody something other than what they want to hear. And it happens often. I mean, you're coming to a reading because you want to get messages that you want to get clear messages about whatever it is that you're there for. And that's what I'm going to do, is deliver the clear messages that I'm getting. And yeah, sometimes I'm just like, I'm sorry, I know that's not what you want to hear. And it's even harder when the person is just like, yeah, well, that's not what these other people said. And so I just wanted to kind of like clarify why that can happen, why you can get different answers from different readers. Everybody is not the same. Everybody has different reading styles. Everybody has different levels of discernment, and people have different specialties too. So just keep that in mind when you're getting a reading, and always try to be as open and receptive to the information that's coming through because it is for your highest good. Yeah. So there's that. Also, don't try not to attach to any one outcome, because that is also a very strong energy, and it can make it hard to be receptive when you're getting information in a reading. So I think I can step off my soapbox about that. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about, I'm going to get some water because parched city over here. Whew. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the importance of raising your vibration before going down rabbit holes. So there's like a spectrum of spirituality, I feel like, as far as genres. There is the horror genre, which is like the kids in caves and the rich people in the secret societies feeding off the kids' tears because it gives them life force, energy, and all of that. That was a very broad overview. But there's that side of the spectrum. And then there's the expanding your consciousness and integrating the universal wisdom and transcending the limitations of your ego and that kind of stuff. And I want to say that before, I think it's a good practice to do what do I want to say? I think that if you do want to start diving down those rabbit holes, it might be helpful if you do some, I don't want to say do some work because that makes it sound like you've got to work really hard for it, but I think that it's helpful if, yeah, and I'm trying to be so politically correct about this. So you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to say what I feel like saying and stop trying to like dance around it and filter. So you can get pulled down into these rabbit holes of darkness. And I've seen it happen to people, and it's so hard to watch for me because, like, ugh, for example, it happened with somebody I was close to, and that honestly is they oh my God, I'm trying to filter myself, and so it's making me stutter. When you start diving down these darker rabbit holes, and I'm not saying don't do it, like if you're interested in something, absolutely go for it, explore, um, do your thing. I'm never ever gonna, tell you not to do something or tell you how to live your life. I just mean that you can get a very skewed perception if your foundation in your own high vibration is not stable. So, somebody recently, I was talking to one of my friends. She's amazing. She's very spiritually aware, and she's been working on her stuff for like 10 years. I really want to have her on the podcast because our conversations are so cool, and I feel like other people would really enjoy them and benefit from them. I learned so much every time I talk to her, and we have such different experiences but such similar experiences too, so it's really fun to talk to her about this stuff. And she was asking me, she was like, do you know about this person? And like, I get really negative vibes from like this prominent figure. And I was like, actually, I haven't spent a lot of time diving into like the darker occult things yet. It was really important for me to work on raising my vibration and connecting with my higher self, connecting with my spiritual team, learning how to protect myself, learning how to hold a high vibrational energy, and learning how to be able to open my heart space and kind of stay in that place where I can maintain a loving, compassionate perspective and view, and always come from that place of love. And I feel like if you don't cultivate that first and you start diving into these darker rabbit holes, you can get sucked in, and then you're just kind of like surrounded by this negativity, like a tornado. What it looks like is this tornado of negativity, and you're just in the middle of it, kind of getting like pushed around. And then it's really hard to get out of that or move up and out of it. And I'm saying that because, like I said, I've had personal experiences where I've seen that happen to people. And I think it can get easy to get sucked into the negativity because it's human nature to kind of be attracted to that stuff. That's why when there are accidents, traffic gets all effed up because people want to slow down and see what happened to the people that got into the accident. We are just drawn to that kind of thing, like to negativity, to horror, to like horrific stuff, to jarring, shocking things. And it comes from curiosity, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with curiosity. So I'm not condemning anybody. We are very curious beings, and that's great. It contributes to learning and development and all the things. I'm just saying that I think it's important to be able to maintain a high vibration so that you can hold a perspective of neutrality, compassion, and love before you start diving into the negative stuff. And when you are diving into the negative stuff, if you're not able to come at it from a perspective of compassion and love, it might make you judgy and fearful. And that's why it's so important to go ahead and cultivate that practice of maintaining the high vibration, because once you're in the judgy negative place, it can be hard to recognize that you're there and then get out of it. And it can create this arrogance around thinking that you're in a high vibration because you know a lot about spirituality, you've been doing your spiritual work, but you're very distracted and drawn to the negative stuff. And if you're feeling very distracted and drawn to the negative stuff, it can also just be a sign that there are some things in you that are resonating with that, and maybe it's something for you to look at, for you to dive into about yourself, that you can heal or develop or look at differently, have a different perspective about. So I mean, I'm sure there are always 360 solutions, 360 degrees to every situation. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't. These are just some things that have been on my mind, and I would love to hear what you guys think about some of the stuff that I've been talking about. Like, what do you think about diving down the rabbit holes, the duality rabbit holes, and like exploring all of the dark spiritual things or occult things before creating a foundation of a high vibration for yourself and really being able to hold that perspective of love and compassion? What do you think about that? Also, what do you think about the time shifts that have been happening, these glitches in the matrix? My God. And also, have you ever had the experience where you were in a reading and and a reader was just telling you everything that you wanted to hear, or maybe you had the opposite experience like I was talking about where somebody's like, sorry, I can't do that. That's unethical. I'm so interested to hear your guys' input and your experiences. So please email me, message me, reach out however you feel comfortable doing it. I love hearing from you. I say that so much. I'm just trying to ingrain it in your brains. Like, reach out to me. I love it. Comment, all the things. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here, listening to me just unleash all of my thoughts that I've been having, and thanks for hanging out. I'm looking forward to the next episode. And until next time, I'm sending you all the good vibes.